The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to a special guest edition of the SpotTrack.com podcast. My name is Paul Peck, with the founder and operator and chief guru of SpotTrack.com, Mike Giannetti. Our regular third wheel, Kevin Sylvester, will join us again next week. But, Mike, we're excited for this because we have a really special guest, one of the more high-profile guests we've ever had on the Spot Track podcast, and that's a tribute to all the good work that you're doing, that people such as our guest today want to be a part of this.
Yeah, really excited. We're going to have Jaguars active GM, general manager, David Caldwell.
Our first active NFL GM guest on the Spot Track podcast, and that'll be great. We're going to talk to Dave a lot about his job, and as simple and as everyone may sort of think they know what a general manager does, I think Dave's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the things that go into his job, some of the ways the job has changed over the years, and I think those are going to be pretty significant as well.
Yeah, there's so many questions we can ask, right? I mean, we can get specific with some players and things like that. Obviously, the draft, we'll talk about that. Free agency as a whole, it's an interesting time in Jacksonville right now as well, right? They've got a big quarterback change, maybe a defense that's on its last leg that needs to get changed over in the next year and a half or so. So his role is going to be integral to sort of rebuilding this thing on the fly now that Nick Foles is in the fold. So, lots of things we can get into. Obviously, though, the role of the GM just right now seems impossible.
It does,
right?
A little bit.
So it's really exciting to have a guy like him on just to speak to that to some degree. He started in 2013, which we'll get to, but the game has changed immensely in the past 6 years, really.
Just as you said that, I'm kind of wondering, he has to be in the upper echelon of longevity
True.
of NFL, because NFL GMs don't always last 6 years, nor do they always get the chance to do what you talked about, which is sort of rebuild and restructure a team. That doesn't happen very often. He like I said, he's been there a long time. He's had a chance to see a lot of different things. So, plus he's a scout at heart, so we'll talk a little bit about the scouting process as well, too. Of course, the SpotTrack.com podcast is brought to you by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. We believe in empowering professional athletes and entertainers with the knowledge that they need to make informed decisions about their finances and wealth. To learn more, go to morganstanley.com/GSE. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC, member SIPC. It's our special guest edition of the SpotTrack.com podcast with Jacksonville Jaguars general manager David Caldwell. Well, for 6 years, Dave Caldwell has been the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and going back to that, he started his NFL career in the mid-'90s under his protege Bill Polian with Carolina Panthers and then with the Indianapolis Colts, and spent some time with the Atlanta Falcons as well, too. A lot of it in the college scouting, but then has made the transition to being an NFL general manager. And from Jacksonville, Mike, we're excited to have Dave join us on the line. Dave, thanks for a couple minutes of your time at what would qualify as sort of the only slight downtime of the NFL year, right?
Yeah, well, this is my favorite time of year. I always call this, we work normal hours each time of year, so a little 8 to 5, and get to watch a team, still be around football, but still get to get home and play with my son and hang out with my wife for a little bit.
I think that just to get us started, Dave, and then Mike will pick it up from here, is just the thought occurred to me that, as I mentioned, you go back to starting your NFL career in the mid-'90s on the scouting end, and you've seen and done and been a part of a lot of change in the NFL from then. So the easy question, I guess, is what's been the biggest change in the way the NFL does business at your level as a scout, as a general manager, as administrator, in your course of time in the league? What are a couple things that jump out at you?
Well, there's many, to be honest with you. I remember actually when I first got into scouting, the path to being a general manager was through being maybe a pro scout or through a salary cap, because the salary cap was relatively new and not a lot of people understood it, and it was complicated. So you needed a person to really understand the salary cap. And then as time progressed, people realized they need talent. And that's where the college scouting came in the fold. And when they hired my boss in Atlanta, Thomas Dimitroff, who was a longtime area scout and road scout, he hired me as his director of college scouting. And soon a lot of owners started to follow path and hired the people that were the talent evaluators and realized that they can hire people to maybe do the salary cap and that stuff and teach the road scouts on a lot of that aspect. On a bigger note, just the evaluation process has really become a lot more efficient. I remember when I first started scouting, Dominielli used to talk about his film that they used to have to piece together, and they used to have to bring their own projectors. And I'm like, wow, well, we're telling the same stories about beta tapes and VHS tapes to our scouting assistants now, where now it's all video and it's all streamlined online. So it's become a lot easier going into schools. You can have a lot of your video done before you go into a school visit, and really just going into schools, getting background character and seeing the players live.
One of the areas where I'm sure hasn't changed too much outside of the analytics and the numbers, right, is the draft. I'm sure there's still a process in place that you've been doing for a long time now, even though your role may have changed. When do you get to a point in the year leading up to the draft where your whiteboard, your draft board is sort of finalized? You feel prepared, ready for that draft?
Yeah, usually about the second week in April. We have we've already started on next year's draft. So our scouts have started this January. So it's about an 18-month process. So by the time we hit training camp, we'll have, a top 200 guys in the draft evaluated by all of our area scouts and our directors. And I'll do a large portion of those guys and start tracking those guys throughout the season. And then you get through All-Star Games, Combine, and then the pro workouts. And then by the time the second week of April, you've kind of narrowed it down to about 180 players, and you've taken off your guys with medical concerns or your guys with character concerns, and then you just kind of focus on those 180 guys and try to figure out, hey, who are the best 7, 8, 9 guys that we can come out of this year's draft with.
One of the areas, especially with the draft, and we've seen it increase over the past 3 years especially, is the use of the trade. Is that because people are sort of figuring out the cap a little bit more internally, because the trade is obviously a way to eliminate a lot of the dead cap? You can build your guaranteed salaries in. You can move that money down the road, send it off to somebody else. Is it a direct effect of understanding how the cap works a little bit more, understanding that the trade is it maybe not only an easier way to build your team, but build your team for the future? I just wanted your thoughts on why there's been an increase in trades so much over the past 3 years, David.
Well, I think the size of contracts have become pretty aggressive, and I think through free agency, and this is always the way it's been, it's hard for players to live up to that contract that they get in free agency, especially when they're in the open market. So when you get 2-3 years down the road and you realize that the player may not be able to live up to the contract, you can sometimes trade them if it's structured in the right way. Every team is in a different situation, and there's different ways of structuring contracts where, if it's a short-term hit, if it's a young player, if it's somebody that you're going to want around for a long period of time, you can do a heavy signing bonus contract. If it's something where, you want to go year to year, cash to cap, you can do a deal that basically is flat across it. And it really depends on your team. When we were building this, our first 3-4 years, we didn't, do a lot of signing bonus proration. Because we knew that the players that maybe the first 3 or 4 years we were here probably wouldn't be here for the long term for us. And they're really just stopgap players until we can build through the draft and kind of develop our own players. Now we're in a little bit different situation that we feel like we got some players that we want at long term, and we went into free agency and spent some money on guys in free agency like a Calais Campbell and guys that we feel good about.
Every team, and yours included, has a staff of people that handle the cap and do all the nuts and bolts negotiations. But as a general manager, some of that responsibility and guidance falls to you. So how has the transition been from sort of your background as a personnel and a scout guy to what you've had to learn about knowing how the personnel part of it fits with the money part of it? And that's probably never been more important than it is now. What's that part of your career been like?
Well, it's kind of like I always say I'm a lot more cautious with somebody else's money than my money. So I like to be a lot more conservative with our owner's money than I would be with my money. But it's challenging because there's a lot of money being placed on players that you're responsible for signing off on. So you really have to rely on the people that do the contracts, that they do them and they structure them in the right way. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's going to be my job and Coach Coughlin's job to sign off on those contracts. And, we just hope that they stand the test of time, which so far the majority of ours have.
Was there ever a point, maybe at some point in your career, where your internal part of your scout was fighting with your internal part of your money guy? Where you're like, I want this player, I love him, I gotta have him. And maybe you're like, yeah, but I can't pay him what he supposedly wants. I mean, is there a moment that you remember about that? And maybe to this day, do you still battle with that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a daily battle, to be honest with you. Even now where I'm looking at guys that are, it's May and guys are free agents, and there's guys that I know can maybe come in and help us, but maybe a little bit older than you want to spend money on. And you're like, well, should we take a chance? But we have some other things we need to take care of. And it's a daily battle. And it's, somebody told me a while ago, I believe Thomas Dimitrov, or my former boss, told me it's easy to just sit back and pick the best player available, but it's another challenge to put the team together and a lot of moving pieces. It's like a game of Tetris, and you add one piece and you take one piece away, and there's always a give and take with of any player you sign.
One of the areas where you definitely spent some money this offseason is in free agency, is at the quarterback position. I wonder if you can just speak to the decision of going and getting a veteran quarterback versus addressing it in the draft.
Well, we went through the whole process, and we knew pretty much very well the quarterbacks in the draft. We've been studying those guys, like I said, for a long period of time, even towards the end of our season, like we do every year, and having a handle of what's going to be out there. And there were some very interesting prospects. The problem was we were picking at 7. And in February, there's no guarantees of anybody that's going to be on your board at the 7th pick. So we kind of weighed the whether or not we wanted to go with a veteran guy who's been proven, a guy that's proven he can win a Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl champion, that can lead and is a very productive quarterback, or take our chances and maybe have to mortgage the future with draft picks to try to get up high in the draft to make sure we get the quarterback that we wanted. And at the end of the day, we just felt like we were a team that was a veteran team. We still have a lot of pieces in place, and to add a piece like Nick and build around him was the best avenue to go.
Is picking quarterbacks any different than it was when you got started in this league 20 years ago? Whether it's a rookie, whether it's a veteran, making a decision which one to go with, and maybe there's just so much more focus on the position now. But is it continue to be the biggest challenge for anyone in the NFL?
The picking of them is not. It's what happens next is the challenge, and the social media, the Twitter, the immediate reaction of everybody has to put their stamp on what the player is going to be before the player even plays a game. And we've seen that this year with some of the quarterbacks that we're taking. It's like everyone's already deciding who's going to be a Hall of Famer, who's going to be a bust. And you just got to let these young men play and then let them grow and let them mature. Every quarterback grows at their own rate. I've seen it where one player had a great rookie year and then, kind of struggled the next 2 or 3 years. I've seen it where a player struggled his rookie year and year 2, he was okay. In year 3, he had a great year. And you've seen players that sit the bench their rookie year and come out and have great second years. So I think being able to handle the media, the social media, that whole aspect of everybody trying to pigeonhole a player as to what his career is going to be is the most challenging aspect, that more so than it was 20 years ago.
So obviously, the area where most teams are deciding to take their quarterback is, in the first round of the draft. We had a team this year select one for the second year in a row, right? The Cardinals. What does that mean? Did that surprise you? What does that mean for the current rookie wage scale? Does it mean that all bets are off? I mean, can you take a quarterback every year if you need to because of the way the rookie scale is structured right now?
Well, it's easier. It's easier to do it than it has been back before this current rookie wage scale. It's not. I don't know if I would recommend doing it, but these were extreme circumstances, I'm sure, for the team that did it, and they just felt like the player that they were going to select was going to be a difference maker, and it's hard to pass up a guy that you have a strong conviction for. A very special set of circumstances. Is it possible to do it? It's very possible to do it, and if you look at what the rookie quarterbacks are making, you can make a case that some of your highest paid backups are making that type of money these days too throughout the length of the contract.
We live in such an instant world, and part of your job is sort of dictated every Sunday, through across the fall. But how much of your job has to be looking ahead? How much do you spend time beyond 2019 and thinking about what your team may look like or what you may need to do for your team in 2021 and beyond?
Well, it's definitely twofold. It's you want to put the best product on the field this year, because there, as you know, in the NFL, just like you stated with the rookie quarterback, there are no guarantees for 2020, and the goal is to win and to win now. We spent a lot of time, trying to lay a foundation here in Jacksonville. It paid dividends 2 years ago. We struggled last year, so we need to get back to where we were 2 years ago when we played your hometown team, the Buffalo Bills, in the playoffs, and continue to grow and look at that. And we still have a period of time where we feel like we can be competitive and have a talent base where we feel like we can win year in, year out.
It's such a win now league, and it's such, like we said, a week to week league. How do you fight the ups and downs of the inevitable results through the course of a week or per practice, maybe even sometimes?
I was gonna make a joke about just going home and self-medicating myself on some Labatt Blue, but the truth be told is I try to keep in perspective. This is a job. It's a job I'm very fortunate to have, and but I got a lot of great friends, family that date all the way back to my time in Buffalo that keep me grounded, and I think that's the biggest thing, and is keeping it in perspective. And like I tell my 12-year-old son and my wife, is to stay off social media and just focus on all the positive things we have going on.
Well, you brought it up, and I'm curious to follow up on it. Is social media has changed everything in all of our worlds in a lot of ways, politics and entertainment and movies and all that stuff. It's easy to say, and particularly for someone like you and even myself that kind of goes back to the pre-social media days, that's easy to say, ignore it, don't watch it, don't pay attention to it. Do you have to fight yourself sometimes on that? Are you dealing with things that come up because your fan base or your players are doing and saying things on social media that eventually you can't ignore them?
Well, we have the key is to hiring good people, and we have a really good PR department here. You've talked with Tad, and that's their job, and they monitor it. They bring it to our attention of things that we need to be aware of, and I think that's the best way of doing it. And I defer to them on those topics, and I think that keeps me a little bit more sane.
Well, we appreciate a couple minutes of your time, Dave, and I know Mike does too. And Mike, Mike and I have talked a little bit. Mike, you can talk to this about how you admire what you've done down there in Jacksonville, and Mike dives into these numbers way more than I do, and I know you've been impressed with some of the things that have gone on there.
Yeah, this has been great, David. Appreciate your time. I know our audience is going to enjoy the little landscape you gave us with the GM role. It's ever changing in a league that's fast paced. So we appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you guys, and give my best to the people back in Buffalo.
Yeah, if you back up here to see the folks, Mike, he owes you a cup of coffee for doing this. So
that'd be great. That'd be great. Maybe a Ted's hot dog.
I'm pretty sure he could deliver on that. Dave, thank you very much. Good luck to the Jaguars this season.
All right, guys.
Well, there you go. One of the more high-profile guests we've ever had here on the SpotTrack.com podcast.
Just an everyday guy trying to make a $190 million salary cap work.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting just to get a little perspective on what that job is, and it can be a thankless job. And I think in these days, there's he talked about it, the instant reaction to everything. Yeah. You're a bum, you're a genius, and that changes from 1 week you're a bum and the next week you're a genius.
I thought his answer was telling about the social media aspect, where you just have to essentially hire a team now, right? Yeah. to make that stuff all go away, because you can't have that influencing what you're doing. You just can't. You've got to be totally unbiased when you're making these decisions.
Yeah, and again, that's where I think sometimes there's disconnect with the fans, and they want certain things, or they want certain things to happen, and I don't want my general manager paying attention to that. Honestly, I go back to an old quote from Marv Levy, who said, "Once you start listening to the fans, you'll soon be sitting next to them." And in a lot of ways, it's not that you ignore your fan base, because you can't do that, and you don't do that. But your job is to make the decisions based on what you know and understand, and not worry about what public sentiment can sometimes be. And in this day and age, it's never been easier to get what that public sentiment is, one way or the other.
In your face. The Jaguars are so interesting, and I wish we could have dove back in time a little bit with him, but obviously we can't go too deep. But think about where this team was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Blake Bortles was almost beating the Patriots.
Yeah.
In the AFC Championship. I mean, and then, 6 months later, he's being thrown out of town.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's how quickly this thing turned for Jacksonville.
And I think, to me, one of the most interesting things about Jackson, two interesting things about them, is he's got Tom Coughlin there, who some people would say is kind of an older, old school kind of a guy, but a particularly smart and successful guy that Dave Caldwell has the ability to involve in all his decisions.
Certainly seems like it. He made it clear that Coughlin's involved too, right?
Oh no, I don't think there's any question about that. No, there's no question about that at all. So that working relationship is somewhat unique in the NFL, and I think the Jaguars situation, in that they've been sort of the one team that's always been willing to go play the international games, is unique a little bit in itself too.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on that. You're right.
There were a lot of other things we could have gotten to, but
that trip to Europe has to be impeding, right?
Well, or have they mastered it? Have they figured out how to do it the right way?
There's still new players every year that have to go through that. There's a learning curve for. Think about Nick Foles.
Right.
Foles has never done that.
But some of it is the way you do it and the procedure, and even to the point where some teams will leave on a Monday and spend the week there. Some teams will fly on a Thursday. So they've done it more than anybody else. So whether I don't have their record over there in front of me to know whether they've done it any better than anybody else, or that may have nothing to do with it. They just may have played better or worse teams when they played over there. So
interesting.
A lot of challenges, and Dave Caldwell, again, has learned from some really high level guys. And I don't know that is always given as much credence as it used to be. I think that he learned at the foot of Bill Polian. Some people listening to this podcast may think Bill Polian doesn't know what he's doing. He knew what he was doing for a long, long time, which is why he's in the Hall of Fame.
You start connecting the dots from Polian to Dimitroff, and you're in a good start there.
Dimitroff was really one of the very first sort of new wave.
He turned the wheels
here.
Yeah, he was analytics driven back in the early 2000s. I mean, I saw him speak at Sloan Sports Conference, the analytics conference. Uberly impressed. I mean, this was early too. This was 5-6 years ago, so it was early on in his GM role with the Falcons, kind of before they got going, and clearly what he did worked. So we're gonna keep diving into this a little bit more. I mean, there's gonna be plenty more. It certainly sounded like Jacksonville's not done, didn't it?
No,
didn't it sound like he's got some more opportunities?
I thought he said
here?
a very telling thing that people are screaming for, you need to sign this guy, you need to sign that guy, this guy's available, and Ndamukong Suh, we need him.
Yeah.
And he said, yep, the scout me says I'd love to add him. The GM says to me I have to make the right decision, and I'm not going to give crazy money to a 33-year-old player that I know I'm not likely to get my money's worth out of. So that's where I think it's interesting. The interesting sort of the angel and the devil that pop up on his shoulder trying to tell him what to do is very interesting. So
his roster building is never done, and you can continue your roster building as well. By the way, Dynasty Owner is the first Dynasty salary cap sports game that not only plays the game week to week, but it's actual contracts, actual salaries, giving you the power to be the coach and the general manager. So a lot of what you learned today, obviously. You don't just trade players for players. There's Dynasty Owner bucks, Dynasty dollars, the virtual currency used to play the game, and it continues on from a yearly basis. Rack up Dynasty dollars each week, whether you win or lose, and use them to build a long-term Dynasty year to year. Your bench players count for points, which is great. I love this idea. I think more leagues need to do this.
Never will you have to beat yourself up over not playing someone.
It's a full roster effect. It's not just the guys you start. I love this. Dynasty Owner even allows you to exceed the salary cap, go all in, and pay a luxury tax fine just like in the real world. This is the first game to combine week-to-week fantasy sports with long-term ownership and GM strategies. Visit dynastyowner.com for more.
If I'm giving you one Dynasty Owner Jacksonville Jaguars choice, who would you go with?
Ooh.
There's a little bit of transition on their offensive weapons
Foles,
there, isn't there?
Maybe Foles for 3 years. Yeah. Maybe that Chark wide receiver, right? That second rounder they took last year.
Yeah. Somebody's going to have to catch some passes there. Who's their tight end going to be? Because we know Nick Foles
they
loves
did
the
just
tight
draft
ends.
a tight end. Third round, I believe they just took a tight end. So maybe that's your guy right there.
When Nick Foles played in Philly, it was almost always looking to Zach Ertz
You're
first.
right. And they took a guy that's very Zach Ertz-like, if I remember correctly.
The San Jose State guy, maybe? I don't,
all right, that's where I'm leaning. That's the Dynasty guy right there.
So, all right, so we thank Dave Caldwell and the Jacksonville Jaguars for letting us get a chance to dive a little bit into the mind of what a general manager goes through, and we appreciate his time on that one. We don't want to remind you that this SpotTrack.com podcast brought to you by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. We believe in empowering professional athletes and entertainers with the knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their finances and wealth. To learn more, go to morganstanley.com/GSE. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney LLC, member SIPC. What are you thinking about for our next version of our typical roundtable Spot Track podcast?
Oh, we've got some maybe a little change of pace.
We'll dive in a little more too. Basketball,
maybe a little basketball. It's getting to be about that time with the NBA Finals coming up, and we might even dive into the other side of basketball with the women's world.
I know you're doing a little work on the WNBA, which their season is about to get started here, right?
It is. So plenty to talk about there.
Yeah, and in the next coming weeks, we'll have Stanley Cup final matchups. We can dive into a little bit of the numbers there, and I think there's some interesting teams in the final. Well, we know the final five. We know three of the final four right now. So that'll be interesting to watch as well too. But again, it is your place for all the information you need to know in the money behind sports, which is no longer behind sports. It is right there, a part of sports. SpotTrack.com and Mike Giannetti is the place for you to go. We thank you for joining us on this edition of the SpotTrack.com podcast.